President Trump's chief strategist, Steve Bannon, is out. Good evening. This is CTV News for Friday, August 18th. I'm Byron Scott.
And I'm Denise Douglas. Glad you could join us. We'll have more on that story in a moment. But first, there are still a lot of questions this hour about a gruesome scene in Clinton.
3 girls, all under the age of 10, were found dead with trauma to their upper bodies inside a home. Police say that a family member called 911 after finding 3 unresponsive children.
The tragedy happened in the 6400 block of Brook Jane Drive. Again, that is in Clinton. Here's what a police spokeswoman had to say about the incident.
Our police officers were the first ones to arrive on scene. They went inside the home and discovered 3 juveniles who were dead. The fire department was the next to come. They pronounced the 3 children dead on the scene. We have now begun the very intensive process of investigating this case. The 3 children are inside the home. We brought in our evidence techs. They were inside the home for at least 2 hours collecting evidence. Our homicide investigators have been on scene since we got the call. We're trying to determine exactly what happened to these children. They do have upper body trauma. We're trying to determine who's responsible. Our officers are in uniform, but they're human beings. They are parents as well. The children cases are the most difficult for any emergency personnel to respond to.
Now, late this afternoon, officials said they believe that the tragedy is a domestic-related crime.
But they haven't released any details on a suspect, and investigators continue to collect clues. Well, 145 years after a statue honoring Roger B. Taney was placed outside the state capitol building, it was taken away. Taney was the Supreme Court Chief Justice who wrote the infamous Dred Scott decision that ruled blacks were not people but property.
I'm sad that they took down a reminder of history. I liked that the statue was there because it started the conversation. It kept the conversation going. I'm afraid people are going to forget.
Opposing views about the fate of a polarizing figure, Roger Brooke Taney.
It's a great day to be a Marylander, and I am so glad that it's gone.
Like a thief in the night, crews moved in and took down the Taney statue from the pedestal he sat upon since 1872.
It's not what we stand for. It shouldn't have then, and it certainly shouldn't now.
Most people we spoke with were glad it was dismantled, but we found 2 people connected by the DNA of time who wanted the statue to stay. Lynn Jackson is the great-great-granddaughter of Dred Scott, and Charlie Taney, the great-great-great-nephew of the Chief Justice. I spoke with both by phone this morning.
Yeah, my reaction is that it's a missed opportunity.
I would call it a defining moment.
And we offer our deep apology.
Back in March, the descendants held a reconciliation ceremony. They gathered at the statue. The Taney family asked the Scott family and African Americans for forgiveness, and they called for the monument to stay, but along with the addition of one for Dred Scott.
And build an educational exhibit so that people could, first we'd have an opportunity for reconciliation, just as the Scott and Taney families have done together. And then we'd have an opportunity to educate people about the impact of that terrible decision.
And we still want that. We still hope that somehow that can happen because in context, it would make more sense.
The Chief Justice Taney statues must be taken down.
Earlier this week, Baltimore took down its Taney Memorial. In June, both descendants wrote a letter to Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh calling for the same thing they want in Annapolis.
You know, you take the statues down and everybody feels better, but we haven't solved anything. You know, the whole idea of the Scotts and Taneys coming together was we have to do some work together. We have to take action to come together, get to know one another, make peace, and make a better future. That just is, it's a cheap, easy way out. What about doing the hard work of coming together as black and white Americans and dealing with institutional racism, making the policy changes that recognize the deep-seated problems of racism in this country and start to solve the problems and not just all patting ourselves in the back because we took some statues down.
The future of the Taney statues is uncertain, unlike the many opinions surrounding it.
Again, we need to remember the history. We need to remember the painful moments.
It is going to take a lot more than removing statues.
House Speaker Michael Bush released a statement saying he's pleased that the statue is gone, and Senate President Mike Miller criticizing Governor Larry Hogan for not holding public hearings on the matter first.
Now, one of the men who helped Donald Trump win the election has resigned. White House officials say Steve Bannon is out. Bannon is the former executive chairman of Breitbart News. He is the latest high-profile aide to leave the White House. Press Secretary Sean Spicer resigned on July 21st, followed by Chief of Staff Reince Priebus. White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci was fired after serving just 11 days in his position. Well, interfaith leaders from Maryland, D.C., and Virginia will gather this weekend to denounce racial hatred. Now, they'll be hosting a rally at Cedar Lane Unitarian Church in Kensington. The rally is called Love Over Hate. Organizers say their parishioners have been troubled by the events in Charlottesville, as well as the president's reaction.
We feel called to really come together and lift our voices together. To be the moral voice, a voice that's absent from the White House, which has sought to not only condone but provide cover to neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and KKK sympathizers.
That event begins at 3 p.m. It will include music and remarks from a range of faith leaders. Ironically, one of the goals of the event was to encourage the removal of White House advisor Steve Bannon, who we already told you resigned today.
And on the international front, authorities in Barcelona are on the hunt for a van driver who killed at least 13 people and injured more than 100 in a terrorist attack. So far, 3 people have been arrested in the incident, the driver jumping onto a promenade in a crowded pedestrian walkway. ISIS claimed responsibility for the attack on Thursday. Meanwhile, suspects tried to carry out a similar attack in Cambrils by driving a vehicle into pedestrians. 7 people were injured. Police killed the 5 suspects in that second incident.